Now, the currency settlement latency issue is an industry thing. It's a bank issue. So, for example, if I'm a billionaire or a big corporate and I want to buy something from India and it's worth millions of dollars, let's say, there is always a transfer issue. So I would be paying at least 0.5% in terms of currency fees and also T+3. So it would take 3 days to transact and I'd have to pay fees on the currency swap. Now, if a bank is doing that from international bank transfers from one big bank to another big bank, and they're sending billions, I mean, there's a whole industry and people just top slicing the fees. And also, the settlement latency is just horrendous. T+3, it takes 3 days, which is not good. And that in itself is a market inefficiency. Now, what happens with technology is that it disintermediates inefficiencies. It speeds everything up, basically. That's what technology does. It makes things easier, faster, cheaper, simpler. And so the banks like this, well, the central banks, the commercial banks, by the way, are dreading CBDCs. So just like I'm dreading CBDCs, the commercial banks do as well, and I'll explain that in a sec. But for the public, they have to con us into this, right? So they'll say, only drug lords use cash, only dodgy people use cash, only builders use cash, stuff like that. And they're trying to stop tax evasion. They'll come up with some crazy number going, all these tax evasion people, they're costing the UK economy X amount, blah, blah, blah. They are a scourge of the nation. And they'll get celebrities to push that message, yada, yada, yada. So, this is the current system. It's called the Banking Net NSS, the Banking Net Settlement System. So let's say we have two people, Bob and Betty, and Bob buys something from Betty for £100. Now, although their accounts may look like they've been instantly transferred, or let's say they're both using Revolut or whatever, it isn't actually instantly transferred. What happens is that Betty's bank account, or they get the transmission and go, oh, Bob is giving Betty £100, and on their online banking it may look like it's come through, but it actually hasn't. With intra-border activities, so like UK, like us interacting with each other, it's T+1. So at the end of the day, everything is settled. So what happens is if Bob's with Barclays, Betty's with Santander, what happens is that ledger, that activity goes to a central clearinghouse in the City of London. It's not actually in the Gherkin. And so at the end of the, and by the way, there's loads of other banks. There's, let's say there's about 12 other banks. And at the end of the day, they all go, right, who owes what? Okay, Barclays, you owe Santander $10 billion. You, this bank, you go, and they all do a little shuffle around. So at the end of the day, in the central clearinghouses in London, they all go, right, you owe me this, and then, only then is this transaction actually settled. This is one of the reasons why Bitcoin is amazing, because you get finality within minutes, which you don't in the current financial system. And when you have transactions with no finality, and you could have finality up to T+1, there's scope for, there are attack vectors there for people trying to be dodgy. And so finality is a good thing, and most people want that. And so then eventually, at the end of the day, okay, Barclays sends the £100 to Santander as part of a big batch, and then Betty actually has the money. So what they want to do is move to real-time gross settlement system. And this is what the CBDC will bring in. So it will be the same thing, but happening in real time. So instead of waiting to the end of the day, that settlement happens in real time. So you have all these different banks and all the people within each bank. If Bob is over here and Betty's over there, and they do that transaction goes straight to the central bank, so the Bank of England, and it is instantly settled at Bank C, etc. So what this does is it effectively puts the central bank, i.e. the Bank of England, right at the heart of transactions. Ooh, now this is where it gets sexy for the central bankers, not for us. All of a sudden, the central bank now has optics on every single transaction ever from now on. At the moment, in this system, the Bank of England has no idea what Bob and Betty are doing or what anyone else is doing. because it's all just big bundles of stuff at the end of the day, and banks doing big transfers to each other at the end of the day. Bank of England has no optics. Under this, every transaction, if I send Mans 1 pence, it will be instantly finalised, but the Bank of England can now see me sending 1 penny over to Mans. That's interesting, isn't it? Now, with AI getting better and better, there's a whole world of stuff which AI can data mine, right? So if the Bank of England now has full real-time optics on every single transaction in the UK, I mean, how much data could they mine, and how many trends could they do? They could create algorithms that instantly flag up, dodgy activity. Why is these 20s constantly sending money back and forwards? What's going on there? Alert, tax person, go and have a look. So what you'll see is that it will also create a whole new industry of tax enforcers and or investigators and stuff like that. Or you could program the algorithm, right, only show me, like if I was in charge of this and I was trying to push this through, I would have a central big, like a space center type thing, but in the central bank with massive screens, and I'd want to see a screen of the UK, and I would like certain filters, right? Only show me transactions of, I don't know, 100 million or more, and show me where they're coming from, and like heat maps basically of all these transactions, and any bubble which gets too big, right, eyes on, and then you have AI investigating all of the transactions that heat map has done for the last, I don't know, 2 years or whatever. The amount of information and data and trends that you can get from this is just unreal. There will be petaflops of data per day. So, side note, in the UK, there's only 50 million transactions a day, which I thought was quite low. So the CBDC, so the DigiPound, would only need to have a TPS, a transactions per second, of only 600. That's pretty low, actually. So the tech is already there. We've got crypto out there that can do TPS way in excess of that. And it eventually, no doubt, moving 20, 30 years in the future, we'll probably have one world currency controlled by one central bank. And then global transactions are only 500 billion a day. So yeah, we'd only need something which can do, sorry, that's annual, sorry. You'd only need a TPS of 16,000. Let's say the economy grew much more over the next 10, 20 years. Okay, have a TPS of 20,000, 50,000. That tech's not hard. Throughput and TPS is, yeah, it won't be hard for something like this. Phase 1, and there will be certain phases over the next few years. First phase is going to be quite benign, and most of the public will have no idea it's happening, other than you legends. So, first of all, cash. I mistyped this when the I didn't type. This slide started out as cash and hand jobs for the best part of a week until I spell checked it earlier. I was like, no, I, where's the I? So they will attack tradies for doing cash and hand jobs. So they'll go, avoiding tax, evading tax, blah, blah, blah. So CBDCs will be great. So that's one way that they're going to push us into away from using cash. In fact, I actually, although I'm against all of this, I still find it a chore when someone doesn't take contactless, like in a shop. Fish and chip shops, cash only. I'm like, God's sake, it's not in the 1960s anymore. So I have to go to the cash point to get some cash out for my freaking chips. So I do like contactless, but I like how it is now, not how it will be. So yeah, eventually everything will be contactless or digital. Tax evasion, yeah, basically those two go hand in hand. Money laundering, it's incredibly hard to money launder if we're all using DigiPound. So again, the public will agree with all of this. Cash transmit COVID. There's been 0 studies that actually shows that. But they'll say it anyway. Every winter, when stuff starts spiking up like they naturally do, they'll say cash is killing people. And using cash is killing Aunt Doris. So yeah, that'll be pretty fast. I think most of the public will go, oh, yeah, okay, makes sense, yeah. Phase 2, shit gets real. AI data mined observations, as I said. they probably won't enforce anything for the first few years. I think if they were smart, and I think there are some smart people in government, if they would not act on it. I think if I was in charge, I would do 5 years of silent observation. Don't do anything, not show my cards, just keep everything to myself. And once my super AI has picked up, like, observed criminals, and like the AI will be able to identify criminals doing dodgy stuff, even with the DigiPound. Once I've built up a big list of all these criminals, etc., then I'll just put the hammer down and arrest them all in one fell swoop. That's what I would do. I think they'll be silly trying to investigate people and find people straight away, because it will then put people off using DigiPound, right? They want to coax us all into this. They want to do it so everyone wants it. That's how things have changed now. We don't really get stuff rammed down our throats anymore. What they do is they make it so that the public demand it and want it, which is very clever how they do it in terms of brain fuckery. Sorry. Real-time cohort spending, yeah, sort of talked about that. Taxing at point of purchase. So let's say you're someone like me who wants to get out of this and wants some sort of currency outside of this shitty system. People will be, running to Bitcoin or Monero or what other stuff like that. Now, you can't globally ban Bitcoin. I mean, China's tried it. It doesn't work. Even if the US bans Bitcoin, all it will mean, it will just get bigger elsewhere. And it's highly unlikely that all 240-odd countries in the world will just suddenly ban Bitcoin like that. So instead of trying to stop it, I think they'll just tax it. They'll be like, oh, we've detected that you've tried to use DigiPounds to buy some sort of crypto on this exchange or this decentralized exchange, or you've tried, we don't know what you're buying, but we're just going to tax you at source. So you sent £10,000 over to this exchange. We're just going to tax you 20% just because you're trying to be dodgy. I don't know. So they could do tax at point of purchase. So it gets around the whole tax evading for crypto, all that sort of stuff. This is the scary thing. By the way, I said this a while, at least 18 months ago. This is already in the works. They are trying to instigate personal climate change scores. So give it a few years, every single one of you will have a credit score, a climate change credit score, starting at 1,000, whatever. And if you drive X amount of miles a month, your score goes down. If you buy some solar panels, it goes up. If you recycle, it goes up. If you drink too much alcohol, it will go down. If you eat too much avocado, it will go down because of the air miles. Like, this is coming, and this is scary. This is really scary. So they. And the thing is, once we're in a CBDC, so a DigiPound, there's no way we can really get around this, because they'll see everything we buy. They can see, I don't know, Steve has eaten 10 kilograms of beef this week. So now Steve is killing the world, and he's killing baby seals in the cold parts of the world. So you're a seal clubber. He's like, you mean beef? And that's how crazy it will be. It'll be like you're doing something quite innocuous, but then all of a sudden you're going to be labeled as a climate change killer, and you're killing, bloody polar bears in the north. So, yeah, and I can't see a way you can get around it, because they will literally monitor every single thing you spend. And eventually, there will be, the NHS, right, they are overwhelmed by unhealthy people, obviously, but people that have made themselves unhealthy. So let's take the morbidly obese, right? They became morbidly obese, not some, yeah, okay, there are some genetics issues and whatever, but most of the time, people just haven't been able to control their hands. That's basically, they've eaten too much, moved a lot less. Oh, this is going to go down really badly if I put this on YouTube. I'm not a fattest. But what will happen is if someone who is morbidly obese, etc., and they are causing too much strain on the NHS, etc., they will be penalized, because eventually the CBDCs or the central banks will have an API with insurance companies, and they'll be like, Steve, you had way too much beef. You're a health risk. Your health insurance is now going up £10 a month or whatever. You drink too much, you smoke too much, you go partying too much, you spend X amount in nightclubs, or it means and so health insurance will go up, your whatever, your national insurance will go up. If you're seen as a reckless person, you'll pay more tax of some sort. This is scary stuff. I hope, by the way, I'm wrong. I genuinely hope I'm wrong, because this is the world my kids are going to grow up into. Now, my kids won't know the difference. They'll just, Dad, this is normal. But I don't want this to happen. And then phase 3 is where shit gets really out of hand. I hope it stops at phase 1, but I doubt it, because power corrupts absolutely. And once they see the power that CBDCs can give you, even, I don't think this is the case, but even, let's say the central bankers have no idea about the data mining stuff. Eventually, they'll go, holy shit, look at the power we now have. It's just going to make things worse. So phase 3.